A young ventriloquist is touring clubs, and one night he's doing a show in a small club in a small town in Arkansas. With his dummy on his knee, he's going through his usual dumb blonde jokes when a blonde woman in the fourth row stands on her chair and starts shouting, "I've heard enough of your stupid blonde jokes. What makes you think you can stereotype women that way? What does the color of a person's hair have to do with her worth as a human being? It's guys like you who keep women like me from being respected at work and in the community and from reaching our full potential as a person, because you and your kind continue to perpetuate discrimination against not only blondes but women in general, and all in the name of humor." The ventriloquist is embarrassed and begins to apologize when the blonde yells, "You stay out of this, mister. I'm talking to that little idiot on your knee." Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson go on a camping trip. After a good dinner and a bottle of wine, they retire for the night and go to sleep. Some hours later, Holmes wakes up and nudges his faithful friend. "Watson, look up at the sky and tell me what you see." "I see millions and millions of stars," Holmes replies Watson. "And what do you deduce from that?" Watson ponders for a minute. "Well, astronomically, it tells me that there are millions of galaxies and potentially billions of planets. Astrologically, I observe that Saturn is in Leo. Horologically, I deduce that the time is approximately 3:15. Meteorologically, I suspect that we will have a beautiful day tomorrow. Theologically, I can see that God is all-powerful and that we are a small and insignificant part of the universe." "But what does it tell you, Holmes?" Holmes is silent for a moment. "Watson, you idiot," he says. "Someone has stolen our tent." Three guys sit in a bar, complaining about their wives. The first guy says, "My wife is so dumb, she carries an automatic garage door opener in her car, and she doesn't have a garage door." The second guy says, "My wife is so dumb, she listens to an iPod, and she doesn't have any earphones." The third guy says, "My wife is so dumb, she carries a purse full of and she doesn't even have a An airman in a bar leans over to the guy next to him and says, "Want to hear a Marine joke?" The guy next to him replies, "Well, before you tell that joke, you should know something. I'm 6 tall, 200 pounds, and I'm a Marine. The guy sitting next to me is 6 feet 2 inches tall, weighs 225, and he's a Marine. The fella next to him is 6 feet 5 inches tall, weighs 250, and he's also a Marine. Now, you still want to tell that joke?" The pilot says, "Nah, I don't want to have to explain it 3 times." A young woman was taking golf lessons and had just started playing her first round of golf when she suffered a bee sting. Her pain was so intense that she decided to return to the clubhouse for medical assistance. The golf pro saw her heading back and said, "You are back early, what's wrong?" "I was stung by a bee," she said. "Where?" he asked. "Between the first and second holes," she replied. He nodded and said, "Your stance is far too wide. You are a redneck if you have more fingers than you do teeth. You cut your grass and find a car. You consider Denny's a fancy restaurant. Your best suit contains more than 5 colors. Your age is higher than your IQ. Your favorite pickup line is, 'Does this look infected to you?' You ask your wife whether the spot on your neck is a boil or a mole, and she replies, 'It's a gummy bear.' You have a family reunion, and everyone in town shows up. You say watch this every time before you go to the hospital. Your wife and ex-wife are sisters." A photographer from a well-known national magazine was assigned to cover the fires at Yellowstone National Park. When the photographer arrived, he realized that the smoke was so thick that it would seriously impede or make it impossible for him to photograph anything from ground level. He requested permission to rent a plane and take photos from the air. He arrived at the airport and saw a plane warming up near the gate. He jumped in with his bag and shouted, "Let's go." The pilot swung the little plane into the wind, and within minutes they were in the air. The photographer said, "Fly over the park and make 2 or 3 low passes so I can take some pictures." "Why?" asked the pilot. "Because I am a photographer," he responded, "and photographers take photographs." The pilot was silent for a moment. Finally, he stammered, "You mean you're not the flight instructor?" 40 years ago, I got a phone call from a solicitor asking to speak to my husband. I told him my husband wasn't home at the moment. He called several more times, and again, my husband wasn't home. Getting tired of his phone calls, I finally told him to hang on for a minute. I came back shortly and said, in a very deep voice, "This is Peter. How can I help you?" He proceeded to give his hustle to me. When he finished, I said, "You need to speak to my wife." iPhone versus Samsung phone user. The new iPhone is coming out. Samsung user, what's new? iPhone user, we're getting facial recognition. Samsung user, I had that 4 years ago. iPhone user, we're getting wireless charging. Samsung user, I had that 2 years ago. iPhone user, we're getting water resistance. Samsung user, I had that 3 years ago. iPhone user, nothing is better than an iPhone. Samsung user, your screen is from Samsung. You know, it's our technology. iPhone user, what am I paying for then? Samsung user, a Galaxy S6. The phone bill was exceptionally high. So the husband called a family meeting to discuss the issue. "Dad, this is unacceptable. I don't use my home phone, I use my work phone." "Mom, me too. I hardly use our home phone. I use my company's phone." "Son, I always use my office mobile, I never touch the home phone." All of them were shocked and together looked at the maid, who was patiently listening to them. Finally, the maid said, "Why are you all looking at me? We all use our work phones. What's the big deal?"